was. She had known she was going to be a doctor since she was at primary school, and she had worked for years to get there, never letting up. She had a place at medical school, and as long as her results were all right, and she was sure they would be, in 6 weeks, she would be heading to Bristol. Liam didn't know what he was going to do next. He was good with his hands. He could fix almost anything, and he could pick up a pencil and, in a few strokes, create something vivid, startling. Jude had said he should go to art school, and he would shrug his shoulders and say he would see what happened, as if it wasn't really his decision to make, as if life just rolled him over and carried him along. Maybe he would go travelling, he said, get away from this medium-sized town in the middle of England where he had lived all his life with his parents and his little brother. She looked down at the hand that lay warm and heavy on her thigh. What would happen when she went to university? They hadn't talked about the future, just as they hadn't talked much about the past. She didn't know a great deal about Liam's family, his childhood, his previous relationships. What mattered was now, and here, and the lovely loosening of her body when he touched her, when she thought of him touching her, and the way he looked at her and said her name. They hadn't been at the same school. Liam had gone to the large sixth-form college on the outskirts of the Shropshire town they both lived in, Jude to the comprehensive, but she had been aware of him, a tall, lanky figure with dark hair that needed cutting and clothes that never looked new, ripped jeans, T-shirts with mysterious words on them, a weird green jacket that on someone else would have looked terrible, but he carried it off. She had seen him over the past 2 years walking along the streets in a group of other teenagers, smoking, swigging from cans, looking cool and impossibly worldly. A few days after her last exam, a friend introduced her to him at a party. She waited for him to say, "Hey, Jude," and laugh at his own wit, but he didn't. She waited for him to turn away and go back to his gang, but he didn't do that either. He told her about a baby fox he had run over that day, how he'd thought at first it was a little child who'd run into the road. The fox was still alive and squealing piteously, and passers-by had quickly gathered to watch. He'd had to kill it, he said, smashing a stone from the curbside against its head, and then take the body and dump it in the woods. He had carried it for almost half an hour, hot and rank in his arms. He was a bit stoned. His pupils were large, his eyes dark, almost black in the dim light. Jude was surprised by how friendly he seemed, and how young. Almost ordinary. Just a handsome boy. For the first few weeks, it had been a gorgeous secret that she hugged to herself. She didn't tell her friends because she didn't want them rolling their eyes or saying anything that would make it seem unimportant or too surprising. She didn't want to hear that one of them had been with him or knew of someone who had or had heard something about him, about his recklessness and his sudden inexplicable bursts of anger. She didn't want anyone to say, "You need to watch out for that one." Even now she was reticent about telling people. Every so often they went to parties together like tonight, and only yesterday they had spent the day by the river with a group of friends. She had talked about him to Rosie, lying in the long grass by the river and speaking to the blue sky. But she hadn't told her parents. She knew they would be alarmed.